Good morning and welcome to Motivational Monday. I am truly excited to see you this morning. And today's motivational, normally I say I am excited about the word, but this morning the word is more informational. And I want to talk to you about a subject that most communities don't have. We don't like to have this conversation. And so today's talk, I'm going to call it today's talk instead of motivation. The motivation part will come at the end. So today's talk is about child abuse. And so April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And this is our last Monday in the month. And so I wanted to touch base and talk about and share some information with you about child abuse. Now, I know most of us don't think that child abuse happens within our communities, don't happen within our churches, don't happen within our schools, and don't even happen within our homes. But today, I want to tell you that it is happening in your schools, it is happening in your churches, it is happening in your communities, and it is also happening in some of your homes. And so today, I want you to be aware and informed about what it is, what it looks like, and everything about this ugly thing called child abuse. And so let's look at the types of abuse. So first we have the physical abuse. And the physical abuse is when you can see the bruises on that child, when you can see the cigarette burns on that child, when that child continues to have broken bones and they continue to say they fell down. And so you can see those physical bruises on their bodies. And then you have sexual abuse. And I know you think that sexual abuse does not happen amongst our children. But there are some people who sexually abuse our children. And you say, well, what does that look like? When an adult penetrates a child, when an adult have a child to perform oral sex. And now I want you to hear me this morning, because some of you are going to be offended by the words that I'm using. But I want you to know that this is real within our communities. This is real within our communities. And then there is neglect. And that is when a parent does not take a child to school, when a parent does not take a child for medical attention, when a child doesn't have the proper clothes to wear. That is neglect. And when that child doesn't get any food to eat, when you're withholding food because that child did a particular thing. And then finally, there is that emotional abuse. That's the piece where we tell them you're never going to amount to anything. You're just like your sorry daddy. And so we emotionally abuse children by some of the things that we say to them. And so today, I just want you to be aware. And I know that we are working with children in so many different arenas. You teach, you go to church with them, you live in the house with them. And so I know that we are surrounded by kids in so many different settings. And so I want you to be vigilant and aware of some of the things that they are facing today. And then you talk about, well, how do you know that a kid is being abused? Well, let's talk about a kid that wears a sweater or a jacket in the summertime and it's a 90 to 100 degrees and that child refuses to take off that coat. That child that continues again to have those broken bones, but they can't explain why they have those broken bones, or I continue to fall down the stairs. And so you see those signs. And then there's also those kids that are withdrawn. And now I'm not saying that every kid that doesn't talk much is being abused. What I'm saying is that kid that sits over in your corner, that sits over in that corner, that refuses to kind of interact with people or withdrawn from the crowd. So you have to kind of watch those children as well. And so today, I just want you to be aware that this abuse is happening within our communities. And again, I want you to remember that to whom much is given, much is required. Now, here's the part where I want you to get motivated. This is the part where I want you to get up out of your seat and get motivated about the word for today. And so I've told you that some of our kids are being physically, mentally, emotional, and neglect abused. And so I want you to help me take care of our children today. There are so many kids who are experiencing so many difficult things in their lives at such a young age. And so I need for you to help me take care of our children. And so here's your motivation this morning is to whom much is given, much is required. In other words, I need for you to get up out of your seat. I need for you to get up and help me take care of our children. And you say, well, Fonda, how can I do that? When children are in your presence, you keep an eye on them. You make sure that you are taking care of them to the best of your ability. One thing I know about children is that they don't ask to come here. They don't ask to be here. But once they have been brought into this world, it is our responsibility to take care of God's children. And then the other thing that we can do is report it. Now, I've come in contact with some people who say they didn't report it because it was my husband who abused my daughter. It was my father who abused my children, their grandfather. I didn't report it because I almost beat him to death and I left all of these bruises on him, but I didn't mean to do it. And so a lot of times, and then you go into the schools and you have teachers who are sexually or physically abusing our children, dragging them across the floor or beating them with a paddle and leaving bruises and broken bones on them. And I'm telling you something that I see every day. And so we got to be watchful. We got to be watchful when it comes to our children so we can take care of them. And then the other thing I want you to do is to report it. We say we don't report it because we know who did it. And so we got to report it to our local Department of Family and Children's Services. You got to call and make that report. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's your husband, your daddy, your granddaddy, your sister. If you know that a child is being abused within a home and you don't say anything or report it, you are just as guilty as the person that's doing it. And so I need for you to report it to your local Department of Family and Children's Services. And so let's take care of our children. Our children don't deserve some of the things that they have to deal with on a daily basis. And so this morning, I want to give a shout out to Open Arms Incorporated in Albany, Georgia. Open Arms takes care of children who are abused, runaway, and homeless. And some of those kids that they get, you can see the physical bruises on those children. You can see the neglect within those children. And a lot of them walk in the door with only the clothes on their back. And so this morning, I need you to, if you don't help but one a year, I need you to help a child, at least one, just one a year. Give that child some attention. And so I need for us to take care of our children this morning. And so our scripture again is to whom much is given, much is required. And so God is requiring us. He is expecting us to take care of his children. And you know, he only loans them to us as much as we want to think they are ours forever. And so to whom much is given, much is required. So this morning, I want to motivate you to get up out of your seat and help me take care of God's children. And so Open Arms have different services that they provide for runaway and homeless youth. They have 4 residential programs where they can house youth. They take care of basic needs, food, clothes, and shelter. And they provide educational and recreational goals for these children. And so they are taking care of children 24/7 in Albany, Georgia. That is Open Arms in Albany, Georgia. And then there's another way that you can help take care of children. Again, I mentioned a lot of those kids come in with the clothes on their backs. And so Open Arms is always looking for donations. And yes, I am advocating for them because they do great work. They take care of our children every single day. Open Arms is open every day, every single day. They are taking care of children. And so this morning, our Monday motivational is to take care of God's children. Take care of God's children. And so that talk that you got prior to me motivating you this morning, that talk is real. That physical abuse, sexual abuse, that neglect piece, and that emotional piece, it's real within our children. And so I just need you this morning to help me take care of God's children. And so thank you for joining me. I know we don't like to talk about this. I know it's a subject that we don't want to have. And we can see it all, before I close, listen to me. We hear it and see it all over the news when it comes to our churches and our schools and and then most times people think that kids are abused by somebody that they know. And guess what? That's true. A lot of times, most of the kids that are abused know the person that abuses them. And it may be a family friend. It may be a family member. It may be their teacher at school. It may even be, sad to say, a pastor or church member. And so it is happening within our communities. And let me say this, abuse has no boundaries. It doesn't just happen to Black children. It doesn't just happen to white children. It doesn't just happen to Mexican children. It happens across the board. There are no boundaries when it comes to abuse and abusing our children. And so it's not a color thing. It's not a race thing. It's not a economic status thing, because some of us think because we make a lot of money, this is not happening to our kids. We got to be mindful that there are no boundaries when it comes to child abuse. So again, this morning, help me take care of our children who don't deserve to be mistreated. Our kids don't deserve to be mistreated. So help me this morning. Help me take care of our children from such an ugly disease called child abuse. And so if you want to donate, and you can donate financially, you can donate clothes and shoes, because our kids, the kids that Open Arms take in, they need those things. And so again, thank you for joining me for this Monday talk. We're going to call it a talk this morning. And I think you'll be okay with that. We're just going to call it a Monday talk, because I want you all to know that within our communities, there are no boundaries. This thing called child abuse. So get up out of your chair. We're just in the month of April. You have to December to help one child. Thank you so much for joining me this morning for our Monday talk. Have a great week, and you know that I love you. Have a great week on purpose.